Hello, everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict Monitor. Please subscribe and like my videos. In recent days, reports from Belarus have stunned observers. What many thought impossible, senior military officers and generals turning their backs on Alexander Lukashenko, now appears to be happening. The very foundations of his rule seem to be shaking. In this video, we dive deep into the unfolding drama in Minsk, how power is slipping away, what it signals for the regime's stability, and what may come next. Let's begin by examining exterior, that is, the broader context and external developments that frame this crisis. Then we'll move to interior details, exploring internal fissures, key actors, and how loyalties are shifting. After that, we'll discuss performance, how well the regime is managing the crisis, its responsiveness, resilience, and weaknesses exposed. Next, we assess safety features, meaning the mechanisms Lukashenko and his allies still have to safeguard their hold on power. Then the unique selling points, the narrative or strengths Lukashenko relies on to retain legitimacy. We'll then look at the costs of this crisis, political, social, economic, to all sides. And finally, we draw a conclusion, where things may head from here. From the outside, the exterior, dynamics suggest a perfect storm of weakening regime authority. Belarus has long been presented as something of a stable outpost in Eastern Europe, a leader who exercises tight control, suppresses dissent, but keeps a predictable order. But that facade has cracks. Since the disputed 2020 election and the massive protests that followed, Lukashenko's legitimacy has been deeply eroded. Opposition activists, civil society groups, and portions of the middle class have demanded change. Meanwhile, Belarus is geopolitically wedged between Russia and the West. Its alliance with Moscow affords it support, but also dependency and vulnerabilities. Russia's influence is both a shield and a constraint. On the external front, international pressure is mounting. Western sanctions, diplomatic isolation, condemnation of repression, and attention on Belarus as a flank in the Russia-Ukraine conflict all weigh heavily. Moscow, for its part, cannot allow total collapse of the Lukashenko system, lest it destabilize a neighbor and open new security risks. But Russia's backing is not unconditional. It expects compliance, and any sign of fracturing loyalty among Belarusian elites could invite Kremlin intervention or rearrangement of control. In short, the external environment tilts against Lukashenko, sanctions biting, reputational costs growing, and the risk that external actors may hedge their bets if the regime looks shaky. Against that exterior pressure, the interior domain is absolutely pivotal. Inside Belarus, key power centers include the military, security services, KGB, intelligence, regional governors, the civil bureaucracy, and the inner circle of regime loyalists. The fact that reports are emerging, though still unverified in many cases, of generals or senior officers wavering or defecting suggests that cracks are forming at the core. Loyalty is not monolithic. Within the military, for instance, the appointment and dismissal of high-ranking officers is a signal of internal unrest. General Viktor Gulevich was dismissed as Chief of the General Staff in May 2024. The new appointee, General Pavel Muravenko, is seen as more aligned with hardline forces. That kind of reshuffling often indicates attempts to resecure control when trust is weakening. When top generals begin questioning directions publicly or quietly signaling discontent, it can trigger a cascade of defections or passive noncompliance. Among security services, the KGB and intelligence apparatus have long been the backbone of regime control. If any segment of those begins to shift allegiance or reduce enforcement zeal, the state's coercive capacity erodes. Regional officials may also sense the winds of change. If local governors see central authority weakening, they may hedge by accommodating opposition forces or reducing crackdowns in their jurisdictions. Civil society and protest movements also have interior influence. Their ability to coordinate, communicate, and galvanize public sentiment challenges the regime's narrative. When ordinary citizens believe that the state is fracturing, that belief itself becomes self-fulfilling. More people take risks in protest, more officials see their survival interests shifting. Information control, media, censorship, propaganda is another interior battleground. If alternative sources of information become harder to suppress, narratives unfavorable to the regime gain traction. Likewise, within elite circles, whispers of a transition or accommodation emerge. One central question: are these episodes of dissent isolated, or are they widespread and coordinated? If only one general or a few mid-level officers break ranks, the regime might contain it. But if multiple generals, regional commanders, or security chiefs coordinate, that points to a deeper unraveling. The interior scene right now is volatile, fluid, and dangerous. Lukashenko is scrambling to subdue it through personnel purges, loyalty tests, rapid reshuffling, and threats. His ability to manage interior cracks will largely determine whether this moment becomes a turning point or a contained crisis. Turning to performance, how well is the regime handling this stress test? Not very well, based on current signals. The regime is reacting defensively, often belatedly. Its intelligence and security services are on high alert, and there are reports of arrests, crackdowns, and information suppression. But those are reactive, not strategic. Publicly, Lukashenko or regime spokespeople attempt to portray continuity, deny defections, claim control over military forces, and vilify opposition narratives as foreign-backed. But contradictory signals, sudden dismissals, contradictory statements, information leaks expose serious coordination breakdowns. The regime's messaging is less coherent than before. In terms of coercive performance, the state still retains significant power. Security forces, police, intelligence, and loyal military units can still use force, but deploying that force broadly risks backlash, escalation, and international condemnation. Overuse of force might fragment further support within the forces themselves. From an administrative standpoint, government operations likely suffer. If key officials divert attention to the crisis, normal governance, economic management, public services may degrade. That erosion impacts public confidence and amplifies unrest. In times of crisis, performance under stress reveals hidden rot, slow decision-making, confusion over who commands, communication breakdowns, and factions forming. Thus, although the regime still functions, the cracks expose deeper fragility. The performance under pressure suggests Lukashenko is not as unassailable as he once seemed. Next, safety features: what mechanisms remain available to Lukashenko to protect his hold on power. These are the regime's survival tools: coercion, patronage, isolation, and external backing. Coercion: the regime can still use police, paramilitaries, riot squads, and loyal military units to suppress protests, detain opposition leaders, censor media, and intimidate dissenters. The threat of force remains a potent deterrent to many. Fear is a key stabilizer. Patronage, distributing benefits, privileges, positions, economic favors to loyalists helps maintain a support base among elites. If Lukashenko can reward people who stay loyal: military, security officials, local officials, business elites, he can shore up commitment, but resources are finite, and if elites see a safer bet elsewhere, patronage loses leverage. Isolation, cutting off dissenting factions internally, segmenting communication, surveillance, and ensuring that any disloyal actors are marginalized or removed before they coalesce. Purges, loyalty tests, and internal policing of the apparatus are critical safety features. Media control and narrative, controlling the propaganda machine. State media censorship, internet shutdowns, blocking opposition channels is key to shaping public perception. if the regime can maintain an image of order. Denounce dissenters as traitors and cast doubt on rumors, it can slow momentum. External backing is also vital. Russia remains a key safety net. If Moscow continues to support Lukashenko, or signals backing behind the scenes, that provides deterrence against both internal and external challengers. The threat of foreign military intervention or diplomatic cover can discourage open revolt, but such backing is double-edged. It may invite dependency and weaken domestic legitimacy. Finally, emergency measures, martial law, curfews, selective arrests, declarations of extremism, and legal tools to criminalize dissent can be invoked to restrict opposition movement. These safety features are not unlimited. If too many cracks open, the ability to coerce or reward becomes overstretched. At some point, even loyal actors may calculate that the old regime is no longer viable. Now, what are the unique selling points of Lukashenko's regime, the arguments or pillars he leans on to justify maintaining power? First, the narrative of stability. Lukashenko long promoted himself as the guarantor of order, security, and social peace amid chaotic neighbors. For many Belarusians, fear of chaos or external interference was a selling point of his authoritarian rule. Second, sovereignty against foreign meddling. He frames opposition as puppets of foreign powers, Europe, the West, or NATO, attacking Belarus's independence. That nationalist narrative resonates with parts of the population wary of external influence. Third, economic control and social welfare. The regime uses state enterprises, subsidies, pensions, social programs, and control over key sectors to reward loyalty and distribute benefits. In a society used to centralized control, this gives tangible incentives. The promise of continued access to these benefits is a persuasive anchor. Fourth, security credentials and deterrence. Because Belarus has a large security apparatus, the regime suggests that only it can control threats, maintain internal order, and resist external coercion. The image of a strong hand can still persuade those who fear instability. Fifth, institutional inertia and lack of alternatives. After decades of one leader and centralized power, for many elites and ordinary people, the default is to stick with the known rather than risk an uncertain transition. The regime counts on fear of the unknown. These selling points remain potent, but only as long as they seem credible. The more cracks appear, the harder it becomes to maintain those narratives. Now let's talk about price. What is the cost of this crisis for all parties? For Lukashenko, the regime, opposition, and Belarusian society. For Lukashenko, the price is existential. If power slips, he faces removal, exile, arrest, or worse. The regime also risks fragmentation, loss of control, and substitution by a new authority. The cost of maintaining harsh control is increased repression, disruption, legitimacy loss, and potential defections. For elite loyalists, the price is choosing sides. Those who back the regime risk backlash if the regime falls. Those who hedge risk being purged. They also risk ruin of careers, loss of status, or reprisals if things go badly. For the security forces, the price is internal moral and operational stress. Being asked to suppress fellow citizens, risk of being turned upon, confusion or hesitation in following orders, or fragmentation of units. Disloyalty inside the forces could be self-destructive. For the opposition and protesters, the price is repression, arrests, violence, censorship, displacement, etc. Some activists will be jailed or harmed. But the upside is high. Potential regime change, greater political space, or reconfiguration of power. For the society at large, the cost includes instability, economic disruption, sanctions, capital flight, halted foreign investment, and uncertainty. Public services may degrade, supply chains falter, and social trust erodes. If unrest escalates, violence or civil strife could inflict deep wounds. International relations may suffer, and Belarus could become a frozen conflict zone or satellite state under external powers. Thus, the price is steep across the board. Only those confident in their bets, or desperate, will engage in this gamble. Finally, conclusion, what is likely next, and how should we interpret this moment? Lukashenko's power is under unprecedented pressure. The reports of generals or military officers turning against him, if confirmed and widened, could mark the beginning of a terminal phase for this regime. But transition is not guaranteed nor sudden. In the short term, Lukashenko will try to reassert control. Purges, reshuffles, loyalty tests, perhaps mass arrests of key figures, emergency decrees, and appeals to Russia for more explicit support. He will likely crack down on protest, tighten media control, and isolate opposition figures. He may offer concessions, token gestures, or propaganda to split dissenters. Opposition forces must be cautious. Broad coordination among protesters, military defectors, regional officials, and international actors could tip the balance, but only if the regime's safety features fail. If a critical mass of military units or security branches break ranks, the regime may collapse rapidly. If not, it may survive this storm and reconfigure itself. Internationally, foreign powers may hedge, applying sanctions, offering asylum or support to opposition leaders, or quietly signaling willingness to assist a transition. Russia may play kingmaker, intervening overtly or covertly if it sees the need to protect its strategic interests. In the longer term, Belarus could move toward a more open political order, or fall into a worsened, hybrid authoritarianism under new leaders. The tipping point will depend on how wide the interior cracks become, whether key actors feel they have a safer path switching sides, and whether external backers shift alignment. To sum up, what was unthinkable in Minsk might now be thinkable, and it may already be underway. But this is no coup in classic terms yet. It is a crisis in the regime's foundations, a challenge to the monopoly of loyalty, and a moment of risk and opportunity. Whether Lukashenko survives or yields will be decided in the coming days and weeks. All eyes must watch which generals, which security units, and which political actors choose a side. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Your support helps bring deeper analysis to complex conflicts. I'll see you next time on the World Conflict Monitor.